welcome everyone. To start off this afternoon, we have a couple of songs as a prelude that were very special to Mel and Margaret. And we'll start with a song from Phantom of the Opera. Think of me fondly when we said goodbye. Remember me every so often. Promise me you'll try. On that day, that not so distant day, when you are far away and free, if you ever find a moment, spare a thought for me. Think of all the things we've shared and seen. Don't think about the way things might have been. Think of me waking silent and resigned. Imagine me trying too hard to put you from my mind. Think of me, please say you'll think of me, whatever else you choose to do. There will never be a day when I won't think of you. Flowers fade, the fruits of summer fade, they have their seasons, so do we. But please promise me that sometimes you will think of me. We have one more special song that I would like to invite Mel to come and join me on. And this is, as I'm told, their song. It's Too Young, the great classic American songbook standard.
I chose this song because this was actually our wedding song. And Cantor has kindly asked me to help him.
They try to tell us we're too young, too young to really be in love. They say that love's a word we've only heard, but can't begin to know the meaning of.
may recall. We were not too young at all.
Welcome to this space of memory and of celebration of an extraordinary lady. I'm Rabbi Jessica Graff, the senior rabbi here at Congregation Sherith Israel, home to Mel and Margaret for many, many years. I'm delighted to be joined by our cantorial soloist, Simon Barrett, who brings us such beautiful music and fills this gorgeous space with our remembrances, with our prayers, with our hopes as we solidify the beginning of some beautiful memories of Margaret. Like all of you, I've known Mel and Margaret for a while and had only the utmost respect for this extraordinary couple, two individuals with incredible independence and yet shared life, 65 years married. Mel told me, and some years before that together, have produced this extraordinary family and community of people who have surrounded Mel and Margaret for all of these years, both with love up close and with reverence for all that you have accomplished in the world. Margaret spoke often of her joy, not only with her family, which was apparent, but also with her business. And I asked Mel just a couple of weeks ago how they worked out these two extraordinary careers. Did they help each other, making decisions? What did they do? And Mel said, oh no, Margaret was completely independent. So I don't know if she helped you in your medical research, but certainly both of you supported each other as you went out into the world to make extraordinary strides in your fields and to come back together to celebrate and to honor each other and all of us as you succeeded with everything that you did to inspire all of us to carry on in Margaret's memory and in the style that Margaret was so famous for. She was strong, she was powerful, she was independent, she was brave, and she was so, so smart. I want to begin this afternoon with a reading of a woman of valor from Proverbs 31. Many, many people deserve to hear this throughout their lives and even in this moment of remembrance, but Margaret especially deserves these words. A woman of valor who can find, she is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but Margaret, you excelled, you exceeded them all. It's traditional at a Jewish funeral service, a memorial service, to read some psalms. The psalms are the praises written by the generations before us. These are the same words that accompanied Margaret as she ended her life and was buried in New York City. Today, we turn to these psalms as we begin the search for some comfort at this time of mourning. We will begin with Esa Einai, which is from Psalm 121.
I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul. your going and coming, now and forever. Esainai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim shamayim va'aretz al yitein lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha hinei lo yanum velo yishan shomei Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yareach balayla Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmar tzedcha uvoecha me'ata
We continue with Psalm 23, traditional reading at this sad time.
God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Adonai roi lo echsar bin od deshayar bitzeini al mei menuchot yenalech Yancheini b'maglei tzedek, Yancheini b'maglei tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech v'geitz al mavet lo yirah ki ata imadi shivtecha u'mishantecha Taroch lefanai, lefanai, shulchan neged zorerai, bishanta v'Hashem roshi, kosi Shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar.
With the chanting of these beautiful psalms, we begin the process of mourning, of finding ourselves in a sad and contemplative space, but also praising God for the privilege of Margaret's life. These words of praise, thank God for all that we had and that we continue to have in the inspiration and the values that Margaret's life will inspire in all of us. The second part of a Jewish traditional service includes the hesped, the eulogy, which both teaches us about the person we are here to mourn and also begins to solidify some memories, some stories that will be part of the legend, the lore of Margaret's life. And so we have many people in the family to hear from today, people who have so much to share with us. First, I would like to invite Dan Scheinman to come to the bima. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a reading before we begin with the hesped. Mackenzie and Madison Scheinman are going to share with us a beautiful reading, and then we will hear several eulogies.
This is a reading called Gratitude for the Next Generation.
If some messenger were to come to us with the offer that death should be overthrown, but with the one inseparable condition that birth should also cease. If the existing generation were given the chance to live forever, but on the clear understanding that never again would there be a child, or a youth, or a first love. Never again new persons with new hopes, new ideas, new achievements. Ourselves for always, and then never any others. Could the answer be in doubt?
When we fear death's decree, let these bring us solace, the memory of loved ones who have gone before us, a vision of generations to come, through whom we reach far into the future, beyond our own lives. We love and miss you so much, Grandma. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Dan Scheinman to share some remembrances of his mother.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming to celebrate my mother's life. Yes. She would be so pleased that so many people have turned out for her. For her, I'm quoting from Psalms, but for her life, to sum it up in one thing, it would be from Queens to Queens. She was born in Queens, and we buried her in Queens. For a woman whose Hebrew name was Malka, of course, meaning queen. There was only one Margaret Scheinman, and it was very clear what her status was. I'm going to begin in an odd place for San Francisco, which is I want to thank Trump, because I think her deep hatred of him kept her going for all of her medical concerns over the last several years. I would say the first several years were kept going by her hatred of the kosher butcher, but Trump far surpassed the kosher butcher. But it showed a lot about her. She was not content just to talk about things, she had to do something. So shortly after the election, there was a women's march in San Francisco. And my mother, of course, insisted on marching with a giant handmade sign that said, "I'm no pussy." Of course, the sign was too big for one person to carry, so she and my father marched through San Francisco. I think that says a lot for those of you who know about my mother. My mother was a strong, independent woman with a zest for life. While I never believe anyone is self-made, I think my mother kind of came close. Some of that strength must have come from her hardscrabble beginning. Her mom and dad divorced, then her mom got sick and died young. Her dad decided, by the way, later in life he was a great guy, but he decided this would be an optimum time to join the Navy and flee, which he did. For my mother, I think this only increased her determination and drive to make something of herself. She proudly told me that when she was a child, she thrived on being the best chess player in her circle, and that she always beat the boys. When one of her favorite relatives said maybe it would be helpful to lose every once in a while to the boys, she said, "That's not Margaret Scheinman," or Margaret Krauss at the time. But another part, I think, was just in her DNA. The Krausses in particular and the Landismans were all tough. And in her memoir, she tells a story about when she was learning to ride a bike. Her neighbor was a kind of a bully, and he pushed her over on the bike. And she went and told her father, who by this time was back living with her. And the father went over to the house, had one conversation, and the boy was never heard from again. So the Krausses came from a tradition of toughness, which my mother had. She brought her full life force to everything she did. I was always amazed that my father and her were the first on the dance floor and frequently the last to leave at every event. And when her grandchildren were involved, it was exactly the same. She brought that energy to all Jewish things. At PTS, she was on the board and created the first movie Havurah. Here she was engaged in so many things. She was so often the driver, the stirrer of the drink, the initiator of things. It caused her to push to travel the world with my father. They went to places that most people would not be caught dead going to. I ran into someone once who told me that they had met my mother and father in the Mongolian countryside at a traditional wrestling event. Of course. She was perhaps most proud of her trips to Iran and to Lebanon. She felt that, of course, she was the only one she knew who would be brave enough to do these things. I didn't think she should go. And she left me with very specific instructions. If I am kidnapped or captured, you can pay no more than $50 for me. So, yes, Mullah, I understand, but $49.99, that's it. I'm more afraid of her than of you. She got very lucky when she met my father in a basement. They both brought out the best in each other. She was always telling anyone who within earshot about the great things my father accomplished. And to Rabbi Jessica's earlier point, quite frankly, she could be found giving medical advice if my father didn't answer the phone first. So I apologize to all of you who may have gotten some of that. But they both loved adventure and pushed each other to go all over the world. They represented, in many ways, two opposites that created a better whole. And I think, she brought out a lot of the great qualities of my father. I think, as Rabbi Jessica said, the qualities found their best application in her business life. In order to pay for college for 3 kids and allow my father to continue his important job in research, she started running the West Coast outlet of a home health care business. And after that business got sold, she went into a long and successful career in property ownership. She built an incredible business with a lot of effort and energy and Post-it notes, 3M, thank you. The other thing that mattered to her is that this business will continue on with the next generation running it, thanks to my brother and sister, and particularly my brother, who's doing an incredible job. She also, I'm sure told literally half of Jewish San Francisco that she had her daughter, the PhD candidate, who was also good in our business. And she was an active grandmother, and she brought all of her best sides to her grandmother. She wanted to do right by them. One of my favorite stories, which I steal from my eldest, was they asked Matthew what he wanted for his birthday, and he asked for a donation to the Ukraine, given the suffering that was going on. Perfect, she said. I'm actually going to Romania and Georgia, and while in Romania, I'll go to the border, I'll find some fleeing Jews, and I will give them money in your name. Well, she didn't quite make it to the border. She did find a Jewish organization in Bucharest and made a donation there in Matthew's name. And sadly, I could go on for hours because there are many, many such stories. I use this line in New York, and I want to use it again because for her grandchildren, I just have one wish. In Judaism, we say, may your memory be a blessing, which has a lot of meaning and poetry. But we have an extra obligation for all of you, which is I want her memory to be an inspiration. I want for when you are down or when the odds are against you, that you feel that life force of your grandmother, and you know that anything is in fact possible, and that you have that DNA in you. I'm also maybe going to step on the theological, and you can correct me, but there is another side of my mother which I also have to deal with, and I want to deal with here. The Scheinman men turn out to be somewhat conflict averse. My mother may have been slightly the opposite. And particularly, randomly, and particularly with the people she loved the most, she ended up in random, sometimes very personal feuds. And I want to say that, in general, it happened with the people she loved most. None of them got to the level of Trump, thank God. And that I want all of you to realize and have that released in these moments, that they shouldn't continue. And I hope that all of you can see the love and not remember the craziness. In New York, I uncovered even a few more than I knew about, which was quite interesting. Today we get to say goodbye to the one and only Margaret Scheinman. While there was only one of you, I hope your qualities will live on in your children and your grandchildren. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Elon Scheinman also to share some memories of his extraordinary mother.
You have to. Mainly accompanied with a wag of the finger. You have to. Sure, a common refrain from really any parent to a child throughout time and across the globe. These you have to messages could be delivered in many different ways. From some other people, it might be a suggestion. For example, you might want to think about, or you might want to consider, but not with my mother. It was literal. You have to. Her you have to's came in sizes big and small and everything in between. You have to clean your room. You have to go pull weeds in the yard. You have to get an education. You have to get a degree. You have to go on a family vacation. You have to call me right away. You have to be financially responsible. And of course, we've all heard plenty of you have to's about real estate and property management. Needless to say, the you have to's list goes on and on. We've all heard them. For me, as a kid, it was, Elon, you have to have initiative. The big I, as she would say. I must have heard this 1,000 times. I feel like it was some sort of mantra for her. I don't know if I've talked to my siblings about this. I don't know if they've got the same big I talk, or if it was somehow uniquely directed at me. As I think back, I wonder if I exhibited some profound lack of initiative as a child. Did my mother see me at some heightened risk of laziness and leisure, a life of laziness and leisure? I can't necessarily disagree with that. But as many things pass from parents to children, at the time for me, the big I mantra passed in one ear, out the other ear. And it's only now that I've begun to revisit it. Now, as I reflect upon my mother's life, I think more and more about her initiative. What drove her? Was the big I, in part, what took our family from her beloved New York, ultimately to California and San Francisco? Was it her big I that helped support my father through medical school, the internship, and early years of being a physician? It certainly took her initiative to start a business and later start investing in California real estate. It took crazy initiative to buy a strip mall in a rural California town of Oroville and then hustle up tenants from all around town to turn what most believe was a rundown, low-value property into a really valuable asset. Her initiative drove her intense curiosity, leading her to museums, a voracious reader, and as we heard, a world explorer. She adventured all around the globe and to some of the most remote places imaginable, and even right up to the end when she visited Spain and even took a tour of San Francisco's Japanese tea garden right up to the start of her hospice care. So clearly, she had an abundance of initiative right up to the end. If it was, even in a small part, her initiative to get us to California, what an inspired move. The Bay Area, as we all know, is where people with initiative thrive. And thrive we did. I know me and my siblings so incredibly benefited from living, learning, and raising our families here in California. And for that, I am so grateful. So, did the message sink in? With hindsight, I'm pretty sure it did. I like to think whatever little bit of the big I gene or the repeated message got me through high school, barely, compelled me to go to college, find my wonderful wife, have a successful business career, be blessed with my fantastic family, and also find adventures in traveling. My mother loved and adored her kids and grandkids, her pride and joy. She bragged to her friends and family about the kids' latest accomplishments. She would share in those accomplishments by taking maybe a little too intimate role in each of our lives. Among the ways she would show her love to her children and grandchildren was, of course, by telling us what we would have to do. I think there are a lot of things my mother has said to all of us at the time we dismissed, we ignored, or often were delivered in a tone that was maybe not too conducive to listening. But as we reflect on the many you have to statements, we as her children and grandchildren have broadly, consciously or subconsciously taken them to heart. As it turns out, there's a lot to learn from a woman with a boatload of initiative. As for me and the big I feel of late I might be losing some of my initiative. At the end, while in her hospice bed, occasionally she would muster a few words in hushed tones. In that moment, maybe for the first time in my life, I would really lean in and listen intently. Maybe I was listening for just one more, Elon, you have to have initiative. So here in California, as we say goodbye to Hurricane Hillary, we also say goodbye to Hurricane Margaret, a force of nature who will be missed. Thank you all for coming.
I'd like to invite Rachel Liger, Margaret and Mel's daughter, to add her own stories of remembrance. And I'll say, just as you're coming up, Margaret, anybody who ever heard Margaret talk about her children heard about the most brilliant, the most extraordinary, the most successful, and the most amazing children and grandchildren ever. She gushed and loved you all so much with tremendous pride. All of us have heard stories about the three of you and all of your kids.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was very nice. I typically would hear how wonderful we were, usually typically from other people, so it's always nice to hear that. I know my mom right now is probably waiting in line with all the other Jews for the Messiah, but she's not just waiting, she's organizing and controlling. I do hope the Messiah comes quick. So many of you here today probably didn't even know my mom was battling cancer for the last 4.5 years. She really wanted to wait to tell you until she beat it. And that was her mantra. So for some of you, it may have come a shock, this long struggle that she went through. She exhibited, and today you're going to hear a lot, you have heard a lot, and you will from the grandchildren, you'll hear a lot about her strength, her courage, her bravery, her determination, and her aggression. And many of you sitting here today have been on the other side of that great strength, and it is a true testament that you're here to support us and to honor my mom, no matter which side of that friendship you landed on. So we appreciate it. My brothers and I and my dad, we appreciate your being here today, no matter which side of that friendship that landed. In some philosophies, people believe that when you don't learn a lesson, you have to come back and do it again. And so I think that my mom's going to come back 3 times. And the first time, she's going to come back and she's going to learn how to apologize. And the second time she comes back, she's going to learn how to forgive. And the third time she comes back, she's going to learn how to repair. I want to tell a few stories about my mom. The first is when I went into labor with my daughter Ashley, my oldest. It was May 23rd, 2003, and whenever anything happened, good or bad, it didn't matter how much my mom and I were fighting at the time. She was the person I picked up the phone and I called immediately. So I went into labor at 7 in the morning and I picked up the phone and I called my mom. Mom. She said, "You're a day late." My birthday was yesterday. Well, have I got a present for you? I faked a contraction. She started screaming, hyperventilating, hung up the phone, and then proceeded to try to get to Southern California. A couple hours later, my husband got a phone call from a Southwest ticket agent saying you need to call your mother-in-law. She needs help booking travel. She cannot do it on her own. Amazing, the old days of travel. Somehow, she made it down to Southern California, and she was bedside with me while I was delivering my first, hyperventilating. And on the third set or fourth set of contractions, suddenly the doctor said, okay, and on this next one, Rachel, the oxygen mask is going to go to your mother. I'm like, one job, Mom, one job, one job. She swears, and she would swear if she were here that never happened, but it did. I don't know how she got bedside, Ashley, but she did. And that's how excited she was to meet you. Next time I went into labor, I had twins that were unfortunately facing the wrong way, so I knew it was going to have to be a C-section. It was midnight, so I decided not to disturb Mom. I figured we'd wait till the morning after I'd successfully made it through, my kids were okay, and everything was fine. So in the morning, bright and early, I gave her a call. Good news, the kids are here, everything's fine. She started screaming and hyperventilating, hung up the phone again on me. It was a Friday morning. Dad was in clinic, so she decided she was not going to wait till clinic was over, and she got in the car and made the mad dash to Southern California. Now, for those of you who know Southern California, I was in Beverly Hills, and my mom landed in Whittier, with the windows down, screaming, "Where is Cedar Sinai? Where is Cedar Sinai? I need Cedar Sinai." So folks were like, "You're on the wrong part of town. You need the 405 North." So they set her straight. I don't know how she made it bedside, but that's how excited she was to meet Tyler and Brooke. For the places where Mom didn't always have patience for us, she showed up in spades for the grandchildren, in spades. Her relationship with our grandchildren, with my children, was miraculous. It was amazing. The last hospital story I'm going to tell you is about my mom. Is at the top of the summer when we came down to celebrate her birthday. She unfortunately had to take a detour and go to the hospital. And so we got her into the emergency room. She was angry and irate because her birthday party was the next day, and she was yelling at them like she was having bad service at a hotel. They finally took her back rather quickly and sat her down and said, your levels are not good and you're going to need to stay the night. We don't advise that you leave. And she said, oh no, my birthday is tomorrow. My grandchildren came into town and I am not staying here. What is your job? What is your role? Who are you? And he said, well, I'm a nurse practitioner. I was like, oh no. She said things that I'm not going to repeat here in a sanctuary. I'm not going to repeat them. And I just asked him, I said, can you tell me where the gift shop is, and do they sell apology cards in bulk? Because we're going to need it. Ashley came home from school one day in the 4th grade. She had a little friend, Lily. She said, Mom, I can't tell whether Lily is good on the outside but bad on the inside, or whether Lily is bad on the outside but good on the inside. And I thought that was really profound, and that was my mom. She had some bad behavior on the outside, but she was really good on the inside. And this summer, I got to bear witness to that good. And that's what I want to talk about now, is the last few months of her life, I got to bear witness to her good underneath. When her capacities were robbed from her, her love and joy of cooking, she couldn't make that last brisket, she couldn't concentrate on business. When everything got robbed from her, I got to witness what was really important. Those quiet days we spent, I think I spent more time in San Francisco this summer than I did in Los Angeles. And those quiet times where we took walks together, and maybe we'd only make it a few blocks, but I get to listen to her, and I got to talk a little bit, but mostly listen. Cuddling on the bed with her to watch movies or to watch a ball game, and where she loved to see, the Giants, her beloved Giants, beat my beloved Dodgers. She got a kick out of that. And those were really special times. Times where she wasn't asking me to do anything, where there was no you have to's, there was nothing, it was just peaceful and spending time together. I got to watch two things that were remarkable. One, her friendship that grew with her caregiver turned friend, Kathleen. We call her Kat. And it was a beautiful experience and thing to watch. And it really showed the good that my mom had on the inside. Originally, I said to the company, you gotta send somebody with thick skin. And they sent us an angel. Kat came into the house and she said to my mom, she said, I'll clean, I'll change your sheets, I'll learn kosher law. But another thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk to you. And I'm gonna listen to you because that's what you need. And that was a big turning point for my mom, so thank you. Thank you, Kat. When she lost the ability to speak, I got to see something I hadn't seen before, and that was a love story. That was a beautiful love story between her and my dad. Her eyes would track him. When he would leave the room, she would look worried. When he would come in lovingly and check her stomach to see what hurt, the way that he was able to talk to her and calm her down when she got a little scared or uncomfortable. That was truly an amazing moments for me to be able to watch. I watched her for the first time get vulnerable and cry. When my girls got up on that hospice bed and cuddled with her and kissed her and said, I love you, Grandma, I watched her cry as she said goodbye to them. Her last wishes were to be surrounded by her children and her grandchildren, and for her last breath to be shared with my dad, and she got that. The only thing that I'm going to ask of you now is she didn't have much information to say about what she wanted for my dad moving forward, but I do, is I'm going to do my best to take care of him and to be here as much as possible, and when I'm not here, he'll be down south. But I'm asking the congregation to take care of him too. Rest in peace, Mama Bear.
I'd like to invite Matthew to share some remembrances of Grandma.
All right. Before I begin, I just wanted to thank everyone who made it here today and who's here in person, as well as who's watching on the Zoom and YouTube link. Thank you so much for spending the time here and remembering with all of us. I wanted to take some time to share memories I had with Margaret Scheinman, my grandmother, that evoke who she was and what her legacy will be for me moving forward. Firstly, my grandmother was an adventurer. As many of you know, she traveled the world and sought to connect with those that she came into contact with. From finding my siblings and I, Uzbeki pen pals, to introducing me to a local couple that she and my grandfather had hitchhiked a ride with and gotten breakfast with in Maine, to using my 5-year-old self as an advocate to try and take my family down the Amazon River. She was always an active participant in life, a real thrill seeker, and a curious soul. More personally, my grandma was always really happy and curious to engage with myself and all of the fellow grandkids personally. It's something that I really appreciate, and it's tough to connect with children, and The fact that she really invested and made that personal meant a lot to me. I could count on her to stay up until 1 a.m. supporting me at Battle of the Bands in San Francisco, to cheer me on at the end, which I can't believe that she did that, to join me at the flea market to haggle over junk electronics and leather jackets and question everything I was purchasing. I could always count on her to really engage with me and everything that I was thinking and all that. My grandma made her own luck. She didn't always have the easiest circumstances and often had to make the best of suboptimal situations. Her hard work and grit supported the family while my grandpa Mel was in medical school, and her business ventures gave my extended family choices about what they wanted for their lives. More than that, though, my grandma innately understood and emphasized the value of education. Whenever I hear the letters MBA, I will think of Margaret Scheinman. She opened doors for herself, moving across the country and making new friends. She wasn't afraid to break the unwritten rules, be ambitious, and seek fulfillment. She was a force of nature. Most importantly, when it came down to what was really important, my grandma always followed through on her word. My grandma truly defines what it means for me to be a matriarch. She prioritized the family spending as much time together as possible and always hosted all the Jewish holidays. Her matzo ball soup and brisket, which always made an appearance on Passover, is elite. Her motto, borrowed from a friend, is that one should never suffer in silence. Margaret Scheinman is a fierce advocate and a problem solver. I will always love and appreciate my grandma for the impact she left, not just on me personally, but on the entire family. I'm thankful for the values that she passed on to her descendants. She had the gumption and bravery to manifest fulfilling life and creating choices for those around her. Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you for celebrating my grandma.
I'd like to invite Griffin to share some remembrances also of Grandma.
I had written something which I hoped to be funny, but bear with me as I try to get through this. Grandpa's singing really did me in. Thank you all for coming. I know it would mean so much to my grandma that you were all here today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Griffin, the favorite grandchild. I'm kidding. That honor obviously belongs to Sophie, but she is not here today, so I will have to do. As many have said, my grandma was a force of nature. She was the center of gravity for our family, holding us together with an incredible devotion. She made sure to live her life to the absolute max, traveling the world, dominating San Francisco's Jewish social scene, spoiling her grandchildren, and being the anchor of our family. Her sheer willpower was often daunting, especially when I had a bad haircut, or what she took to be a bad haircut, or was not in town for a Jewish holiday. But there's nobody who lived a richer, fuller life than my grandma. Underneath her intensity and passion, as Rachel pointed out, she was also deeply caring and tender. She loved us grandchildren more than anything, and she never let us forget it. I have so many memories of her doing whatever ridiculous thing that I wanted to do, whether it was riding around on Muni, making her famous brisket that's been mentioned many times, or terrorizing the employees at the Bloomingdale's in Union Square. All she cared about was making sure that I had a wonderful day, even if that meant riding San Francisco's public transit for 8 hours straight. Her love for us grandkids was completely unwavering, a gift I don't think any of us could ever repay. Even though she's gone, I hope we will all continue to draw inspiration from her and the wonderful life that she lived. She taught me to never stop learning and to get the most from each and every day. And I wish I could thank her for those lessons today and every day. I know there will be so many more moments in my life that I will want to share with her, but I also know she is resting peacefully, extremely proud of the enduring family she built. I love and miss you so much, Grandma.
Reed, please share some of your remembrances with us.
Thank you, Grandma. Thank you for everything you've taught me. Thank you for being powerful. Thank you for working hard. And thank you for providing for me and my cousins. Thank you for being brave and strong for the last 4.5 years that you've had your prognosis. Thank you for believing in me and showing me while it's okay that I have my rough days, that I'll eventually be strong and powerful just like you. And thank you for helping me to reach my goals. Thank you for all the quirky stories I get to tell about our experiences and adventures together. A form of gratuity that she would have appreciated more than thanks is for me and for us to tell stories that we have amassed. I'm almost sure that everyone in the room has a story that comes to mind of a time when my grandma did something so unexpected that it stuck in their head. For me, it happened on a cruise that me and my cousins Ashley and Maddie took after my bar mitzvah. For those of you who don't know my grandma, she had a very competitive side to her. After hours of being cooped up aboard the ship and trying unsuccessfully to get Ashley, Maddie, and I to befriend other children on the ship, my grandma decided she needed to compete at something. We learned that over the course of the day, she had enrolled herself in a tournament to play ping pong, a sport that she was scarily good at. That all sounds great so far. As it turns out, the other grandparents aboard the ship had also struggled with getting their grandchildren to interact with other children. However, instead of taking the same route that my grandma did, typically they signed up their own children to play and meet the other kids. My grandma came home that night with a moderately large trophy after not allowing any of the 10-year-olds to amass a single point. Larger than the trophy was her smile. She loved it, the competition, the ping pong, but most importantly, the winning. She loved winning, and her 9 grandchildren. She loved baseball. She used to come over to my house in the early days of me playing baseball and throw the ball around with me. She'd give me pop-ups and ground balls, and she really made me work. Then, when she got tired, we would go inside, and after every time throwing the ball, she would request that I include her name when I get inducted into the Hall of Fame. When I was a kid, I took this as, make sure to include Grandma in my speech. But now looking back on it, I think about how she never questioned that I'd make it into the Hall of Fame. She was steadfast in believing in me and my abilities. I always knew that she believed in me. While I may have changed my aspirations over the course of my life, she never changed that core belief in me. She always showed me how to shoot for the stars, and my only response is, thank you, Grandma.
I'd like to invite Ashley now to share some of her own remembrances of Grandma as well.
Today, we are celebrating and honoring the life of my grandma, Margaret Scheinman. My grandma was an extraordinary woman who inspired me with her strength and resilience each and every day. She was the strongest person I knew, besides my own mother. From a young age, she was forced to grow up quickly, but rather than allow her unfortunate circumstances slow her down, she fought to build a successful future for herself. One that was full of love, family, and happiness. During my childhood, my grandmother often shared with me the story of the little engine that could. In this tale, a train carrying toys faces a breakdown on its journey. Many other trains pass by, refusing to help, until the little blue engine stops. Initially doubting its abilities, the toys encourage her, and together they chant, "I think I can, I think I can." As they slowly ascend the mountain, with unwavering determination, they succeed, and cheer in gratitude. As the little blue engine descends, it confidently states, "I thought I could, I thought I could." When my father passed away, I was 11, and the loss left me struggling to make sense of a future without him. It felt impossible to overcome. However, when I turned to my grandmother, who had endured the loss of her own mother at the age of 7, I discovered that recovery was indeed possible and that life could continue onward. She would remind me of the tale of the little engine that could, which served as a reminder that despite feeling powerless, I possessed the inherent strength to overcome the loss. She consistently reassured me that I had the resilience and the strength to create a brighter future for myself. I then began to work much harder in school, and my grandma always supported me along the way. She was my biggest cheerleader, always celebrating even the smallest of victories. Seeing her excitement when I accomplished something new instilled in me that I was capable of success. This motivated me to continue forward and to always work hard. Grandma was also a friend to me. I loved going to get my nails done with her or visiting different places in the city. We would spend whole days where she would share stories with me or talk about her childhood. She was always very interested in my dating life and would call often to make sure I was going to Chabad to find myself a very nice Jewish boy. And when I finally agreed to go on one singular date with a Jewish guy, she was ecstatic. She celebrated, called her friends, emailed relatives, and talked logistics with my mother. She was set, this was it, I would marry a nice Jewish boy. Grandma was a regular at the local Calmart, and on one of our outings, we ran into one of her friends. Before even introducing me, she said, "I have fantastic news. My granddaughter is going on a date with a nice Jewish boy." That Friday, Grandma took me to the temple for Shabbat dinner with her matchmaking gears in full motion. She insisted that it was important for me to have many options. As we were eating, Grandma spent the entire time scouting the guys. She looked to me and she said, "What about that one?" and looked to another. "Wow, he's very good looking. And that's a good one. He's going to be a lawyer." We laughed a whole lot that night, and it's a great memory. But this memory is so important to me because it reminded me of how much she loved me, and it showed me her softer side. Grandma, I love and miss you so much. You will forever inspire me to work hard and push through difficult times. Your memory inspires me to continue through even the darkest of days because you are an example to me of what comes of hard work and resilience. Thank you for giving me the ability to seek out higher education and the courage to pursue my dreams. Your light will continue to shine brightly in all of our hearts. While she is no longer physically with us, her spirit will continue to live in the memories we have and the lessons we have learned. Thank you for helping me grow into the woman I am. I love you forever and always. And then my sister, who couldn't be here today, wanted me to read her speech out loud, so I'm going to go ahead and read hers as well. So Brooke said, "I think it is fair to say each of us had a very different relationship with my grandma. I'm so grateful to have had the one with her that I had. To me, she was one of a kind, someone who truly led a life full of love, generosity, hard work, and dedication. I admired how much she cared for her family and spent her entire life working hard, just so that her kids and generations after could be as successful as she was. She will always be my inspiration to work hard, as she set such an incredible example for us throughout her life. Through all of the obstacles she faced, she was able to keep her determination and positive attitude throughout it all. And she did it for all of us. She stayed strong so that her grandchildren, her family, and her friends wouldn't be worried. She never wanted any of us to worry. I don't think we recognize enough how much effort she put into making sure no one was worried. She invalidated herself so much to the point where even by the end, she was still convinced that she was fine. While it may have gotten frustrating at times, it is important to recognize the reasoning behind it all. She refused help because she didn't want to be a burden. She knew that she was the glue to the family. Grandma made it look easy, and I always look up to her. Her perseverance was truly inspiring. I thank her for bringing such special people into the world. My mom, Elon, Ari, she created such an amazing family, and words cannot explain how much Brooke is going to miss her. I wish she was able to see me grow, get into college, and start a family of my own, but I know she'll be there in spirit, guiding me throughout life. I love you, Grandma. Rest easy.
I'd like to invite Mel to share some stories, thoughts about his wonderful lifelong travel buddy, companion, adventure travel companion, and soulmate of 65 plus years, Margaret.
I want to sincerely thank all of you for coming. It means so much to me, and Margaret is smiling from up above. Ashley, who you just met, accidentally found a drawer full of letters that I wrote to Margaret when we were kids. We were courting. And I spent about an hour and a half reading through them, and they were so warm and meaningful. And the reason I want to bring it up is if any of you have such letters, read it now. Don't wait to the very end till someone is gone, because there is so much youth and ardor and love and warmth, and it was all there. So thank you, Ashley, for I wanted to just share a few things to you. At the outset, I just want you to know that we had a traditional, kind of warm, affectionate relationship as long as I did exactly as instructed. Margaret, I'll have to answer for that when we next meet in the heavens. Seriously, I was always indebted to her for perceiving what was really important to me, such as completing my training in cardiology and pursuing a career in academic medicine. There were lucrative offers in private practice, and she always said to me, "You do what you want, follow your own dreams." Likewise, although she was brought up in a very Jewish home, her home was not kosher, and I felt important to have a kosher home, which she honored for the past 65 years, and I'll always be indebted for these important things that she organized for me. As you heard, she had a magnificent career in real estate and single-handedly would buy, manage both residential, commercial properties in Northern California. She would read these dense legal contracts and deeds without any assistance. I couldn't even understand these items. She was obviously the financial dynamo in our family. But it's important to emphasize that Margaret was multidimensional. She was an avid reader. She enjoyed the movies as well as live theater, and was fully equipped to engage with the arts on the basis of a wonderful background in liberal arts, which she got from George Washington University and Queens College. Margaret was also very much involved in the Jewish community in Northern California. She served on the board of Brandeis Hebrew Day School. We originally lived in San Francisco. She served on the board of the Peninsula Temple Sholom in Burlingame. She initiated movie chavaras, both at Burlingame and here in Sherith Israel, and also was a member of a number of the groups here at Sherith Israel, the memoir group and the book group. With all of that, she was first and foremost a loving and devoted mother and grandmother. She was so proud of her children, as I am. It was always incredible for me. We would go to a restaurant, or we'd ride on a plane, or there would be some kind of a special event, and she would engage strangers and go on and on about the triumphs of her children and her grandchildren, complete strangers. I remember we once had a conversation on a plane. I asked the person sitting next to me, how about your family, blah, 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 and then they gave me everything. And then afterwards, Margaret said, well, why didn't you tell them about our family? This is, I rest assured, Margaret will continue to be a part of all our lives, certainly mine. Every time I enter a museum, every time I see a show, or there will always be, I bet Margaret would have loved this, or I wonder how Margaret would feel about that. Going forward, she will always be a force, dynamo for her children and her grandchildren. In the last several months, the cancer which she suffered from progressively got worse, and she only had a few hours during the day when she could have some quality time to accomplish some key projects. And one of them was an ethical will for her children and grandchildren, which just is a beautiful document. It summed up everything that she cherished and wished to perpetuate. So goodbye, Margaret. Your wisdom and love will forever inspire.
We've heard so many beautiful things about Margaret's spirit, about her lessons, about the values that she held so deeply and was so open about sharing with others, about her family. We believe in Judaism that when a person dies, the body and the soul are separated. The body, of course, returns to the earth, but the soul lives on in our world, inspiring us and giving us the strength to go on and to do so many things in our own lives as we refer back to the love, to the lessons, to the values that came before us and brought us here. And so we read El Malei Rachamim and have the opportunity to hear the beautiful chanting of this prayer that asks God at this time to protect Margaret's soul always, to keep it under God's own sheltering wings, even as she lives on in our own community, in our memories, and in our hearts. Please stand. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Margaret, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen.
Shochen mamromim hamtzei menucha nechona
Yastireim beseter knafav leolamim veitror bitzror hachayim et nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam ve'anuchu beshalom beshalom al mishkavam v'nomar amen.
It is the greatest mitzvah in Judaism to bury the dead, to remember the dead with dignity. It is a mitzvah that can never be repaid. We bring our love and our reverence for Margaret to this place, knowing that this mitzvah of saying Kaddish together cannot be repaid. And yet, as we say these words praising God, our attention turns also to Mel, to supporting those who are immediate mourners, and to taking care of our community as we stand with you now for Kaddish Yatom and throughout this time of Shiva and Shloshim, the first 7 and 30 days of mourning. Your community is here to support you and to help you as you begin this grieving process. We join together in these words of Kaddish Yatom in Margaret's memory. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'amei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to all the bereaved who are among us, as we remember Margaret with reverence.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol
Amen. In just a moment, we'll have the opportunity to look at the beautiful photographs in the foyer and to join together in a meal of consolation as we comfort Mel and the Scheinman family downstairs. I would particularly like to thank members of the Board of Trustees and the book group who came together today to help us usher and to bring our community together. Mel, and to your family, we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sharav le'tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, and may you know that this community that stands with you today stands with you through all these days of grieving. Amen. Please turn. Yes, tomorrow there will be a Shiva Minyan here at Congregation Sherith Israel at 7 p.m. The community is invited to stand with Mel, with the family, to say Kaddish tomorrow night as we continue this week of Shiva, of immediate mourning. Please turn to those around you and give everybody a hug. You are Margaret's most important community, and through your hugs we remember her.